Nottingham Forest financial situation is no secret. They got their points deduction last season and lots of reports circulating that they need to sell before the end of next month in order to avoid any further PSR sanctions, and as a result plenty Premier League clubs, including West Ham, are monitoring this situation, having a look at the Nottingham Forest squad, thinking, is there anyone that we fancy that we could perhaps pick up on a bargain and take advantage of the fact that Nottingham Forest need to sell before the 30th of June? And why wouldn't it be? There's a lot of talent in this Nottingham Forest team. But that's what we're going to be taking a look at today as a bit of fun. We're not necessarily being linked to any of these players. We've been linked to Awoniyi, we've been linked to the likes of Awoniyi and Gibbs-White in the past. In fact, quite the opposite. Ex-West Ham employees said we're monitoring the situation, but he's given reasons as to why we probably won't sign any players from the club. So if you're not an Nottingham Forest fan, relax, it's a bit of fun, because we're just a fan channel. I think sometimes people forget that, they get a bit disappointed or annoyed or angry in some cases that we don't break news on here. We discuss transfer rumours, we discuss that upcoming match, the latest match, whatever's going on in the world. We discuss it just like you do with your friends, and I've always discussed things like this with my friends. In fact, I've done it this week with the 3 teams that got relegated from the Premier League. Is there anyone we'd like at our club? Because we're not all West Ham fans, so we discuss it in regards to our club. Anyway, Friday, Nottingham Forest situation. I thought, let's have a bit of fun. Get involved in the comments below with anybody you'd like to see in the Claret and Blue next season from Nottingham Forest. But before we get on with it, I would like to address the elephant in the room. Where is Gonzo? He hasn't got younger and more hair all of a sudden. No, he's had a few days off. It's a post-season break ahead of pre-season, ahead of the Euros. Gonzo's had a few days off just to re-energise, come back refreshed and ready and raring to go, just like all good athletes. So Gonzo's taken a leaf out of the book of Premier League players heading to the Euros before he comes back to this channel. But he'll be back on your screens tomorrow, so you don't have to wait too long, and this is what you've got to put up with. Right then. Do you know there's some players you just like, and it's hard to explain why, and you know not many people will agree with you. I've got one of those players at Nottingham Forest, and that's Nico Williams. When he went there from Liverpool, it was one of those transfers, I wouldn't have minded that at West Ham actually. I think it's a punt worth having. Welsh international, looked good for Liverpool, just that there was a lot of options at right back. So it made sense for him to depart Anfield. Nottingham Forest was the right club for him to go to. He's sort of had quite a lot of competition there as well. They had a bloody big squad. But he's made that spot his own this season, I feel. And that's helped by lack of options on the other side at left back, which has put Awoniyi over there. But when I've watched Nottingham Forest this season past, and to be fair, the one before it as well, I still like him. I like him more and more, actually. He's just 23 years old, I think he is. A lot of experience for a 23-year-old. Really good going forward. At times, he can get caught out defensively. But again, he's still quite young, I think. I think he's still learning his trade. He's not much older than, say, Conor Coventry, for example. But you have a look at their CVs in football, they're a million miles apart. One is played, at the World Cup. Wales aren't at the Euros, are they? That was, sorry any Welsh people, I was just always saying he'd be at the Euros. It's just weird that if Scotland's there, I just assume everybody's there, right? We don't make it too often. Anyway, but the difference of CVs between him and some other 23-year-olds is huge. Would I want him at West Ham though? I wouldn't be against it. But I think Soufal is a capable right back, and he's going to be part of our squad for the next year at least. So we are going to bring in a right back this summer, which we're supposed to. We are supposedly looking at a right back to replace Ben Johnson. I'd like it to be a substantial one. Somebody that comes in and just knocks Soufal out of the team. They're that good that it's almost like not much competition, and Soufal becomes a very, very good second choice in competition for the new guy. Is Nico Williams that player? I'm not so sure. Plus, I think he'd come with a hefty price tag because, well, why wouldn't he? He's homegrown, and given the reasons before, he'd cost a little bit of that. So I'm not sure it would reflect good value for money, but it's just one of them players I've always liked and would not mind him at West Ham. Now moving on to number 4, I just picked 5. Why wouldn't you? And I'm doing them in order, right? But number 4 is Hudson-Odoi. Now the reason I wouldn't want Hudson-Odoi is purely value. Last summer, he was one of the signings of the season. I think it's gone under the radar. Is Kudus a better player than Hudson-Odoi? Yes. Did Kudus have a better season than Hudson-Odoi? Yes. But Hudson-Odoi cost $3 million, right? Value for money. He's up there with the signings of the season for me. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. In the second half of the season, I thought he's better under Nuno than he was Cooper. When he first went there, it was right. This is where Hudson-Odoi, he needs a home. He's one of those players, came through at Chelsea, and it's difficult for any youngster to make it at Chelsea. Went over to the Leverkusen. He did okay. Not magnificent, but he was okay. There's smithers of evidence that there was a really good player there. And at $3 million, that, I say punt money, it's worse than punt money. 10 million is punt money in the Premier League these days, but for $3 million, it couldn't really go wrong. It either worked out or it didn't, and you shrug it off. Whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham paid more than that for Calvin Phillips' loan fee. I would not be. I don't know how much it was. City were wanting $5 million. We didn't quite pay that, but that is what we're dealing with here. $3 million. Anyway, had a really good season, especially towards the end of it. A big part of Nottingham Forest staying up. When I watched them, say February onwards, I thought he was really, really good. One of the first names on the team sheet for Nottingham Forest. And I'd imagine he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet going into next season. If they're trying to rebuild the squad a little bit or mould it, he's there. That is his position out on that left-hand side, and he's not getting moved. He is in there. Not quite build your team around him, but you don't. Nottingham Forest don't need a left winger this summer. Hudson-Odoi is their left winger. But for clubs looking at him, again, good age, good experience, homegrown, it's ticking all the boxes, except the price tag. Because, I mean, talk about needing to make profit, that's someone Nottingham Forest could cash in on, and it would really help out their books, because you're probably looking at 20 million now. I'd imagine if he left the City ground now, I'd imagine you're looking at 20 million for him. Doesn't mean anybody will pay it, but Nottingham Forest will be well within their rights to say, well, no, we're cashing in on this guy. We're looking to make big money on him. Understandably so. So, would I like him at West Ham? Not really. Not a bad player. Just value for money. A bit like Nico Williams. Value for money. Now we're getting on to someone who might represent a bit of it if he didn't have a bad injury record. And that's Awoniyi. When he joined Nottingham Forest from Union Berlin, I was a bit disappointed we didn't go for him. Because, obviously, our manager at the time was David Moyes. I thought he ticked everything that David Moyes wanted in a striker. And at the time, my concern was the fact that he would, every couple of seasons, he would go away to the African Cup of Nations with Nigeria. But it's his injury record. I think in his season prior, he had a really good season at Union Berlin, scored 15, 16 goals in the Bundesliga. The season before that, he only scored a handful, but he had an injury. But the season he scored 15, 16, so the one before he joined Nottingham Forest, he was fine, didn't pick up any injuries, just went away for 3 games for the African Cup of Nations, and then came back. So he missed January, that was it. Not a big deal. But in his first season at Nottingham Forest, had a decent injury, missed 5-6 games. Last season, even worse, he had 2 spells where he missed 5-6 games, and it's just too many, because again, you would have to pay big bucks to get him out of Nottingham Forest. He's a really talented player, and like I said, I'm disappointed we didn't sign him. I guess you could argue that it's good that we didn't because of his injury record. I'm not so sure, because he has scored goals when he's been available. He didn't score too many last season, but like I said, lack of game time, and then, unbelievably, the form of Chris Wood. Never thought I'd say that. So he was missed, but not missed as much as I thought he would, because Chris Wood decided to turn into one of the most clinical strikers we've ever seen in the Premier League statistically, factually, since records began in terms of keeping track of minutes played and goals and stuff. I don't know if he finished as #1. Certainly with a handful of games to go, he was on course to be the most clinical striker we've seen in the Premier League over the course of a season, which is mad, really. It's done by shot conversion. He has X shots and scores Y goals, so is every 30% of shots he has goes in. That's how it was measured. But he was #1 of everybody ever in the Premier League since records begun. Wild. Awoniyi though has everything. Fast, strong, got an eye for goal, really clinical, good today. He's not really got a weakness bar his legs, and that's the problem. So, homegrown as well. He's home, even though he plays for Nigeria, because he came through Liverpool. He was at Liverpool for enough. You need to be 3 seasons before you're 21. He was at Liverpool before going to Union Berlin, so he's qualified as homegrown despite representing Nigeria. So yeah, another player I would love, just not value for money. The next two are, before you think you're just going to say this for every player, there's not, and also there are players that possibly do reflect value for money. I just haven't included them because I perhaps don't have a big desire to see them at West Ham. By the way, I was going to do we did the Premier League Team of the Season video. We were going to do another couple, and I was going to include like an awards one, which included like disappointment / flop of the season. That's Sangare. I was excited to see him in Nottingham Forest because there's a lot of our subscribers. I do read the comments. A lot of people wanted him at West Ham. Just a bit like Fofana at the minute. Fofana is the new Sangare. This is the guy to go get. So I was intrigued when he went there. I thought this guy's going to be really good because of what everybody has said. I thought he was poor, like really bad at Nottingham Forest. I say bad, that's a bit harsh. He wasn't good though. So I was a bit, that would be like, he'd be a contender for flop of the season, bad signing of the season. You got your good one in Hudson-Odoi, you got the bad one in Sangare. Right, anyway, on to the top two. No prizes for guessing who they are. And we're going to start with Morgan Gibbs-White. Fantastic talent. Can't see him at West Ham. He had a fallout with Lopetegui previously. So there's been a bit of something between those two. I always think that stuff like that can be resolved though, as long as it's a one-off situation, heat of the moment, which I think it was. I always think that can get resolved. That's not a big issue. I just threw it in there. Morgan Gibbs-White. This would possibly depend on, or maybe he was on the shortlist to be the replacement for Lucas Paqueta if we had sold him. Obviously that can't happen now, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't want him. I think he's an excellent player. I think he's right to be aggrieved to not be in the England squad. Certainly like a professional one where you get the players together at training camp, you've got a couple of friendlies, and then you trim the squad down. I always think, what's the harm in just having everybody that deserves it? I think Gibbs-White deserves it. And weirdly, Harvey Elliott. I'm surprised Harvey Elliott wasn't called up, but never mind. I know Scott's been commenting on England. I know, I get it. But I just watch a lot of Premier League football. Gibbs-White, I get why he's got the hump. I wouldn't be surprised if he left. I wouldn't be surprised. Not that Nottingham Forest want to sell him, but he'd command big money. I don't know. I'm bad at valuing these things. I'm just, again, I'm throwing a number out there. It's just what comes to my head. 60 million. That's the price that comes to my head. Homegrown, can score, can set up, really hard working, a bit of a leader as well, can play in various different positions. There's not a lot to dislike about Gibbs-White. Unlike Awoniyi, can't recall him having injuries. I feel like he's played every game this season that I've watched Nottingham Forest. Sometimes on the left, sometimes central. Moved him. I think Cooper tended to play him out on the side a little bit in order to accommodate more bodies in the middle of the park. So he sort of had to become a bit of an inside forward, if you want to call it that. Whereas Nuno's going to get in that number 10 role, and we'll play Hudson-Odoi, we'll play Alanga, play in the middle. And I thought it improved his performances. I think he's a fantastic player. I would absolutely love him at West Ham. I remember when he first left Wolves, it was question marks over his attitude. None of that now. From what I've seen, I've got more evidence of what he can do at Nottingham Forest and what he didn't do or did do at Wolves when he left. Those question marks for me have been removed. Top talent. Can we afford to spend 60 million on a player? I'm not so sure we can. Not without any big sales and unwelcome sales. But he'd be up there for me. I think he's a real good talent. Moving on to my number one though, Murillo. No surprises there. Never heard of him a year ago. Joined Nottingham Forest, never heard of him. Remember watching Nottingham Forest. I'll be completely honest with you. I was watching Nottingham Forest at the start of the season. Fulham's in my head, don't know why. Maybe it was Fulham, maybe it wasn't Fulham. I was watching Nottingham Forest. I thought, who's this guy? I've never heard of this guy, and he was sensational. He was man and match by a country mile. He was Nottingham Forest's best playmaker in centre defence. He was dribbling out from the back, he was passed out from the back, he was just winning everything defensively. Now, I'd only seen him once, so while it was a bit like, whoa, who's this guy? Let's have a look. I went down one of my rabbit holes in football where I click on him, then I'm like, oh, he's come from Brazil. Click on his old club, and before you know it, you're 15 pages long, you're now on a Brazilian, you're now on Rivaldo. So that got one, but I thought it's one game, right? But he's only 21 years old, so there's maybe more to come here. But every Nottingham Forest game I watched, I was just waiting for him to not be good. I thought, surely this guy cannot continue putting in these top performances. And there were some games he wasn't as good as the others, and there's one or two games he had a bad one. But generally, those were when the whole team played bad. And they did play bad for a long period under Cooper. And to be fair, under Nuno, I'm still not convinced that that's a good appointment, but discussion for another day. But there was some games where I watched he didn't particularly play well. However, nor did anyone else around him. Just Nottingham Forest in general did not play well. But there were some games I watched that Nottingham Forest didn't play well, but he was brilliant. And there were some games where the team was decent. He was fantastic. The guy shot from the halfway line on a couple of occasions and nearly scored in one of them. Just has everything. Left-footed centre-back, can dribble out from the back, can play it out from the back, is good at the air, is good on the net. This guy's got no weaknesses. He is destined for bigger things in West Ham. That will be what. If a Nottingham Forest fan has made it to the end of this video, first of all, congratulations, stick around. But second of all, I'm sure they will be typing up, Murillo is too good for West Ham. And do you know something? I don't disagree. I'm not sure about him today. Would he go to Man City or Liverpool today? Perhaps. But I think they would perhaps maybe wait for him to have another year at Nottingham Forest. Just another year of evidence before making that big money move for him. And I think that gives an opportunity to some clubs like West Ham, like Newcastle, for example, that we did want a centre-back and we had the money. Murillo's one of those players that you get in and either you match his ambitions and hopefully you go get European football so he doesn't have to leave, or you cash in. It's a bit like what we've done with Kudus. I think there's an expectation that Kudus will leave West Ham next summer, at this point, next summer. Unless we achieve something ridiculous over the next season. That'll be finishing in the top 6 or winning one of the domestic competitions, which is unlikely at this point. It is unlikely. And I think Murillo is one of those players in that bracket which I think I genuinely could see him playing for pretty much any team in the country. Man City is the only one I have queries with, and Arsenal, given how good Gabriel and Saliba are, and got Timber there as well. But apart from that, I think he walks into any of the other defences. Obviously, there's a bit of an issue that Van Dijk's a left-sided player, but Van Dijk can just move over to the right. There you go, sorted it. I've sorted your defence arm slot. You can thank me later. But Murillo, I think, would actually be better value than Gibbs-White. I think Murillo would be around the same price, 50 million maybe. Gibbs-White, though, I don't know if he would go up in value post 60 million. Would he turn into a £100 million player? I'm not sure. Murillo, yeah, I think he's got a couple of levels to go actually. Just a genuinely fantastic footballer. It's not very often you enjoy a centre-back playing, if that makes sense. Normally, naturally, when you're watching a team that's not yours, you're drawn to the creative players in the game. Why wouldn't you be? The wingers, the strikers, the centre, those are the ones you're drawn to. Murillo is one of those very few centre-backs that when I go to watch Nottingham Forest play, I'm actually looking forward to watching a centre-back play football. And and this is just the geo-analysis, that's a special talent right there. Anyway, there you go. That's my would like to have at West Ham. There's only 2 of them because of value for money, but they've got a lot of talent there. Get involved in the comments. Like I said, Gonzo will be back tomorrow on your screens. However, if you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new to this channel. I'll catch up with you later on tonight over on the other channel where we'll just do a bit of a transfer rumour roundup. I'll catch you then.